Welcome to Middleton Hall, a Learn English radio series from the British Council. The Swimming Pool, Episode 3.
Hello, I'm Amanda Carlton.
And I'm David Evans.
And in this series, we aim to improve your English language skills with the help of a drama about life in an English hotel called Middleton Hall.
In the last programme, we heard that the hotel manager, Sitwell, has brought his nephew Ronald to Middleton Hall. Ronald has been asked to clean the swimming pool, but really he wants a full-time job at the hotel. In fact, he wants Kevin's job.
Kevin is a young man who has recently started work at the hotel. Everyone at the hotel likes him, apart from Sitwell, who has a plan to get rid of him and replace him with Ronald.
And in today's programme, Sitwell starts to put that plan into practice.
In our first scene, Sitwell and Ronald are with Mr. Middleton in the hotel garden. Mr. Middleton, of course, doesn't realise that Ronald is Sitwell's nephew, because they are keeping it secret. They're talking about cleaning the swimming pool. Mr. Middleton asks Ronald,
"How long do you think the job will take?"
And what two answers does Ronald give to that question? Mr. Middleton then says to Sitwell,
"Could I have a private word?"
And what does he ask Sitwell? Let's find out.
And how long do you think the job will take, Ronald?
Oh, not long, Mr. Middleton, not long at all.
But how long? You must have some idea.
Maybe a couple of hours.
A couple of hours? Are you sure?
All right, maybe a couple of days.
I see. So it's either a couple of hours or a couple of days? That's quite a big difference.
Well, I'll have to think about that, Mr. Middleton.
Really? Ronald, will you excuse me for a moment? Sitwell, could I have a private word?
Yes, of course, sir.
Are you sure Ronald's the right man for this job?
He is very highly recommended, sir.
But he doesn't seem to know anything at all about swimming pools. I mean, he has no idea how long the job will take.
But just wait until he starts work, then you'll see what he can do.
You seem very keen on him, Sitwell.
That's because I'm sure he'll do a good job, sir.
Yes, if you say so, Sitwell.
So, according to Ronald, how long will it take to clean the swimming pool? First, he says,
"Maybe a couple of hours."
and then when Mr. Middleton asks him again, he says,
"Maybe a couple of days."
Mr. Middleton is not impressed and asks if he can speak to Sitwell privately. He says,
"Are you sure Ronald's the right man for this job?"
Sitwell tells him that he's highly recommended. In other words, lots of people have said he's very good. He continues,
"Just wait until he starts work. Then you'll see what he can do."
Mr. Middleton doesn't sound like he's convinced, but as usual, he accepts Sitwell's opinion, saying,
"If you say so, Sitwell." You're listening to Middleton Hall, a Learn English radio programme from the British Council.
In the next part of the scene, Kevin joins them at the swimming pool. He says,
"I'm just getting some extra chairs for Mrs. Middleton's lunch."
Mr. Middleton remembers that it's the ladies' lunch club today. Then Sitwell says,
"Actually, Kevin, before you do that, there's something I'd like you to do for me."
and here are two questions for you. What does Sitwell ask Kevin to do? And does Mr. Middleton think this is a good idea? Here's the next part of the scene.
Morning, Mr. Middleton. Mr. Sitwell.
Ah, Kevin, how's everything going?
Very well, thank you, sir. I'm just getting some extra chairs for Mrs. Middleton's lunch.
Yes, of course. It's the ladies' lunch club today, isn't it?
Actually, Kevin, before you do that, there's something I'd like you to do for me.
Yes, Mr. Sitwell?
Could you go into the village and pick up some things from the shop?
But what about Mrs. Middleton's chairs?
You can get them when you come back.
Will there be time?
There'll be time if you hurry. Right. Here's the list.
All these things?
Don't stand there and read it. Go! Get a move on!
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. I will.
Sitwell, are you sure that's a good idea? Mrs. Middleton has a very busy morning. Surely she needs Kevin here.
If Kevin goes quickly, he'll be back in no time.
Oh, well, if you say so, Sitwell, if you say so. Anyway, let's get back to the swimming pool, shall we?
So, what does Sitwell ask Kevin to do? He says,
Could you go into the village and pick up some things from the shop?
Kevin asks,
But what about Mrs. Middleton's chairs?
but Sitwell tells him,
You can get them when you come back.
and so Kevin goes off to the village. And does Mr. Middleton think this is a good idea? No, not really. He says,
Mrs. Middleton has a very busy morning. Surely she needs Kevin here.
but Sitwell just says,
If Kevin goes quickly, he'll be back in no time.
because, of course, this is all part of his plan to get rid of Kevin and put Ronald in his place. You're listening to Middleton Hall, a Learn English radio series from the British Council. And don't forget that you can find more resources at the British Council Learn English website at learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. In the next scene, we join Kevin in the village shop. There, he meets the shopkeeper, Mr. Trot. Mr. Trot recognises him and says,
You were in here last week. I never forget a face.
and you may remember, we met Mr. Trot in our last story. He says to Kevin,
To tell you the truth, I didn't think we'd see you again. I thought you'd gone.
and why does Mr. Trot think this? Here's the first part of the scene.
Good morning.
Oh, hello. It's you again.
You remember me?
You were in here last week. I never forget a face. So, how can I help you?
Right. I've got a shopping list here.
Can I see it? Well, I think I've got most of these things somewhere. They won't be easy to find, though.
I don't have a lot of time.
All right. I'll be as quick as I can. Let's see what we've got. To tell you the truth, I didn't think we'd see you again. I thought you'd gone.
And why did you think that?
Well, like I told you last time, staff don't stay long at Middleton Hall. And then, yesterday evening, when that Ronald came in, I said to myself, what a shame. That young man must have gone.
Well, why did Mr. Trot think he wouldn't see Kevin again? He explains.
Staff don't stay long at Middleton Hall.
And he continues,
And then yesterday evening, when that Ronald came in, I said to myself, what a shame. That young man must have gone.
So Ronald came into his shop, and that gave him the idea that Kevin wasn't at Middleton Hall anymore. But how did Mr. Trott know this person was Ronald? Let's find out. Here's the rest of the scene.
Sorry, did you say Ronald? Who is Ronald?
Mr. Sitwell's nephew, of course.
His nephew?
I told you he wanted your job last time you came in.
Yes, you did. But how do you know it was his nephew?
Well, for one thing, he looked just like Sitwell. Tall, with a long face and those cold blue eyes.
Yes. Yes, you're right. He does look like him.
And then he paid for his shopping with a credit card, and I noticed the name, Mr. Ronald Sitwell.
Ronald Sitwell. Huh. So it really is him. Oh.
Is everything all right?
Ronald Sitwell isn't there to clean the swimming pool, is he? Ronald Sitwell is there to take my job. I'm sorry. I've got to go.
But what about your shopping list?
Is he? Ronald Sitwell is there to take my job. I'm sorry. I've got to go.
But what about your shopping list? Excuse me, young man. Young man!
So how did Mr. Trott know that the person who came into his shop was Ronald? He gives two reasons.